I couldn't help myself. This is my 1958 BMW Isetta 600. It is totally ridiculous. We'll get to that in a bit, but I mean, what even is an Isetta? So, ISO, small brand in Italy, was making refrigerators and scooters. They came out with their Isetta, which means small ISO. It's supposed to be a car made for the masses, a cheap economy car. Fuel was expensive at this time, you have to keep in mind. And they made it for a few years until BMW bought basically all the patents and the machines to make them. And they started making them in 1956. BMW mainly sold luxury cars at this time, so for them to go to something like this was actually quite the step, and it basically saved their brand. So the first Isettas were 300s, and they're shorter than this. This is a 600, so it is a 600cc BMW R67 motor. It's a boxer twin producing 20 horsepower, and that's supposed to propel this thing to 100 kilometers an hour, which would be totally ridiculous. But yeah, the smaller Isetta 300s have a 300cc single cylinder. Both 4-stroke engines, and yeah, this thing is ridiculous. I don't know what to do with it yet, but we'll give a quick walk around. I love the patina. It's very cool. Alright, so for the Isetta, I suppose we should talk about the most unique feature of these cars, and that, of course, is this basically refrigerator door. ISO used to make refrigerators, so I think that's where they got the inspiration. But it's pretty cool. The steering wheel goes with the door, it's attached to it. You have a little U-joint and this rod here to extend. And I'm missing a cylinder. It doesn't stay open, but it is such a ridiculous thing being in this. There's actually more room than you'd think. It is a 4-seater, but there's like two, yeah, it's not much smaller than a Mini. It's just such a ridiculous car. And this is actually a North American model. It's originally from California. It actually has 63 on the black plate, which is pretty cool. But it's a US model, so it has the big headlights, big 7.5 inch, and then different bumpers as well. And it is a 2-door. So there's a door here to gain access to the back seats. And yeah, it's actually be a decent amount of room. It would be fine for I think 2 parents and 2 kids, maybe 3 kids, something like that. Very ridiculous. And the Isetta 300s, they only have the refrigerator door on the front, and all of them have sunroofs. And the reason for that is, in the event of an accident, you actually need a separate exit point. So if you crash into something, you can't open the front door, you have to go through the roof. This one, the 600s, is kind of rare to find a sunroof one, but some of them have them. But all 300s have it, because they don't have another door, which is funny. Now this particular model, unfortunately the previous owner actually used it as a parts car. That's why you see some of the stuff missing, because it was a running car when he got it. I'd like it to get it running again, I think. But if you look in here, like, there's a decent amount of room for maybe even a bigger motor. We'll see. But yeah, I'm loving the patina, the faded look. I think it's really cool. And it's actually in pretty decent shape. There's not too much rust. If you look at the rockers, this is kind of the worst of it. The floors are rusty, but rockers and like all the kind of, yeah, fender corners and stuff, it's all pretty decent. And this tape and stuff will come off. Tape residue should come off easily. Really cool. I mentioned earlier that this engine bay is surprisingly spacious, which we'll get to in a second, but first I'd like to point out the rear trailing arm system. This is actually the first BMW to implement the semi-trailing arm rear suspension. You'll note that the 2002s, E9s, Bavarias, even E30s, they all use a variant of this system, and this is the first car to have it. which means this thing could actually handle quite good with the right bushings and maybe coilovers, which goes back to my point of this engine bay being rather spacious. I could go with the route of the original 600, of course, or I could go with a little bit more power. Now, I've been thinking with an R100 BMW motorbike engine, you still maintain the air-cooled look, and it'd still be a twin boxer just with 1000 cc. Now, I think that would make this thing boogie, or another option, of course, is a modern sport bike engine, like a R1 or something along that line, which would be, yeah, they'll be around 150 horse, which means this thing would just be insane. Which sounds fun. Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't really know what to do with it. What would you do with it? Or what do you want to see me do with it? Would it be worth putting some extra power and making this thing ridiculous, or kind of going the original route? I'm honestly leaning towards more power just because it has this patina rat rod look. And just the suspension system, like, it's kind of interesting. It'd be fun to make this thing handle good, I think. And I think it really could. Yeah, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. This is kind of a different, in a way it's a different purchase for me, but it's just way too cool. I couldn't help myself.